Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. Welcome to the Scholar Online YouTube channel. In this channel, we make videos on learning web development, learning web application development, e-commerce development, digital marketing. If you're new to this channel, please feel free to subscribe. You'll find the subscribe button at the bottom of the video that you're watching right now, that red button over there. Please subscribe so that you will always be informed and you'll get notifications every time we set up a new video in this channel. We have new videos on Wednesdays and on Saturdays. Also, like this video and leave me a comment below, and I will try to get to each and every single comment that is made on this video. Another useful feature that we have on our videos is at the bottom inside the description box. If you expand the description of the video, you will see we've got timestamps to interesting sections in the videos that we're making, because we make a lot of long videos, so you don't have to watch the entire video. You can just read through the timestamp and read about the section that you're interested in, and you can just click on that timestamp and it will take you exactly to that section, and you can just watch that section. And it's also useful in future. If you return, you can just go to the timestamp and click on the section that you want to watch again. And also in the description below, guys, we've got links to our social media channels: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Please follow us there as well. We sometimes output information in there, and let's start learning. And welcome back to the Scholar Online lecture series on building your own web application from scratch using a Python and a Django. So we have already 3 lectures in this series where we do we've covered all these sections of the planning of our project. We have built our development environment. We've already installed Python and we've already installed Django, and we've purchased a droplet from DigitalOcean, where we are going to be developing our code on Linux environment. We thought it's just a better idea to develop your code in the same environment that you're going to deploy it. We intend to deploy this application when we're done. So we are building it exactly where we're going to deploy it for ease of deployment. And we have installed the production environment resources that we require all the way in our DigitalOcean droplet, which is like your virtual machine or virtual computer that's operating on Linux. And we've already downloaded the template that we're going to be using, which is our project resources. So we know exactly what our website is going to look like. It's going to look something like this, what you have over there. And we covered a bit of theory explaining what is object-oriented programming, because that's the approach we're going to be using, and we're going to be utilizing it a lot, especially with Django, because it has a lot of object-oriented programming built into it. But together with function programming, we will show you how to develop all of those objects that we're going to be working with. And in the last lecture, we covered a little bit of SEO, because I'm a firm believer of building everything, entirety in its fullness. So when you're doing a web application, you have to keep in mind all these other elements that come into play, like search engine optimization, because you will need to, once you build your website and it's out there, it doesn't matter how well, how beautifully you've done it, how good it looks, how well the Python engine works in the back end if you have 0 visitors. So we also spent time in the previous lecture taking you through keyword planning and picking the right keywords that have got decent search volumes, and how we're going to work on, within our template itself, building those keywords in there and making sure that we at least have a higher chance of ranking for the keywords if we at least do our own page and technical SEO right. Okay, so we covered that in the last lecture, and we also purchased a domain that we're going to be working from. And that was directly connected and tied into the keywords that we're going to be working with. And in the last lecture, we also sort of selected a sort of a high level, very crude, logo, but that should be sufficient for the purposes of what we're teaching you here. So these are all the steps typically you would want to cover at the beginning of your project execution if you're developing a web application, to make sure that you've got all these things, planned in and decided and, sort of like pinned in. So now we're going to go into actually starting to build the application. So you'll see we've already done 3 lectures just planning, and only on lecture 4 are we going to start actually building this application. So let's get right into it. So I've written down, some some steps that we're going to be following, and if other steps come along, we will sort of include them in here. But so far, these are the steps that we're going to be covering in our project execution. Okay. And remember, we've divided our project planning into, our project into 3 stages. The planning part, which is like the initiation of the project. The execution is when we're actually now building the application. And then finally, when we're deploying it and all the things that we need to have in place, we'll have them covered in there. So the first thing is we're going to create an app, okay? So create our first app is the first thing that we're going to be doing. And let me just take you back to our Django. So this is the development environment where we have set up our Django application. You'll see I already have my Python env running over there, and this is the directory where the application is. If you type in ls, this allows you to list everything that is in the directory where you're in, so you can see what are the files and folders that are in here. You will see in here we have manage.py, and we have our app, and we already have our static folder. Okay, so if I can explain to you what these things are. Manage.py, this is the sort of the main control Python file that runs a lot of the the Django commands that we're going to be typing in, and you'll see those Django commands as we go along. They are being run from this manage.py file. It is created by Django automatically. So when you install Django and you install the first project within Django, it's going to create these folder structures for you. If you saw in our lecture 2, I think that it was, where we installed and created Django, we haven't actually manually put in any files ourselves. All these files were created by Django itself. And so if you, let's have a look at we can quickly just have a look at what's in this manage.py file. And to do that, you just sort of type nano manage.py, and if you're in Linux, what nano is the Linux sort of code editor. It's built into the the command line, and if you just type nano manage.py, it's going to open that file directly on the command line, and you'll be able to see the contents of that file in there. And we're going to be using this nano command a lot, so it's something that you must just keep in mind, and it should just be easy out of your fingers, muscle memory. Make sure you remember it. Every time we want to have a look at a file, we're going to open it using nano. And there is other code editors that you can use on Linux that work better, easier, faster, but I don't want to confuse you, and I think for this project we should be able to manage with a nano. So nano manage.py, this is basically the commands that's in there. It doesn't, you won't see much, and do not edit this file. Don't change it, just leave it as it is. I just want to show you that this is basically what's inside the file. It was created by Django when we started, and it has all the commands that we need to sort of be working with. Okay, so I'm going to close it, and you close it there. It's just from my computer, it's just Control X. It closes that file, and provided there's no changes in the file, you don't need to save anything. Okay, then I want to have a look at, if you're looking at if you're like new to command line programming and also working with Linux, especially if you're SSHing from your own computer, when you look into your droplet, you will see the different colors, and the green color is a file. It will be in green, but you'll also see the extension of the file, and the blue color will be the folders. So if something is a folder, it will be in blue. So that means that the Scholar app is a folder, and we can open it and have a look at what's inside. And this folder as well was created automatically for us when we downloaded our first project inside of Django. So let us look at what's inside this folder. And to do that, we're going to type in cd. So cd is just the Linux command to cd, which means we are moving into a directory. Okay, moving to the directory called Scholar app. Okay, so cd Scholar app is going to move us into the directory called Scholar app, and if you click enter, you will see we were there, and now we've just opened the new directory Scholar app. And if you now ls, which means you are listing everything that is in the directory that you're in, and you click enter, you will see inside of Scholar app, these are all the files that are in here. And again, at this point, we're not going to edit anything. We will still edit later as we go along, but if you want to list it in a way that you can see clearly or see better, you can ls minus L. It will show them in a vertical list, and you can see these are all the files that you have in there and the owners of the file. So we have settings. We will be working a lot with the settings.py. We'll be working a lot with the urls.py, and we'll create other files that we're going to be working with, such as views and so forth. But for now, Don't worry about WSGI. We'll get to it when we have to deploy our application. And but for now, just focus on the URLs and the setting. The URLs is where we are going to be defining the routing and the path of our application. If you recall, if you've worked with some other Django, not Django, but like JavaScript, you know, platforms or JavaScript, web application development platforms, there's always like a routing place where you route, all the different pages or HTML pages, in one file. In our case, within Python Django, we're going to be doing it in the URLs file. And the settings is basically like your, I don't know, like your, in JavaScript, it would be like your, what you call it, like a JSON. What is that? Whatever JSON. I can't remember. I haven't coded JavaScript in a long time, but it's basically a place where you define, where the application should find things like your static folder, your images, where are the images stored, where is your CSS stored, where are your fonts stored, how do you manage a lot of things, where is your database, how do you log into your database, so basically like the configuration. Yeah, so your config file is basically what's in the settings.py, how the application is going to be configured in terms of the database and and all of those other things. And we've already seen the settings.py file. Remember in lecture 2, when we were setting up this application for the first time, we had to connect the database that we're working with, which is our Postgres database, and we had to input our username and password. We did that in the settings.py. If you want to have a look at it again and you can just record, so I can remind you what we've done there, we're going to type in nano again. If you recall, nano is when you're opening a file from the command line with the nano text editor within Linux, and then we can then type in settings.py. All right, so if you do that, you'll see all the contents of the settings file. This is basically the file. The last lecture, what we did, we worked on the database part of this of the configuration, and we entered our passwords in here. Okay, so in real life, obviously, you're not going to use a password like that, but for the sake of development, I'm going to just do it like that. And to close this file again is Control X, and then the file will close. Okay, so I think that's enough. I'm going to go back to where I was. I like to run all my commands from where the manage.py file is, because manage.py is actually where the Python scripts is running from, or the shell is running from. So when you run your commands, you should be in the same place, or you should direct the commands to be in this place. So the first command that we're going to be running is the command to create an application. Okay, so we've already created a project that is called a Scholar app, and the project is sort of the high level web application. But within that web application, the way Django works is that it's going to have multiple applications within that project. Okay, so let me try and draw this for you. Okay, so let me add a new slide there, and let me add a blank slide, and just try and draw for you how this application structure is going to be. Okay, if you look at the top there, we're going to have a top level, what we call a project. Okay, and we can make this a little bit bigger. We're going to have a top level project, and this is what we called Scholar app. All right, so this is the folder that we call Scholar app. And if you recall, when you go inside the Scholar app, you've got your settings.py in here. You've got your settings.py file, and you've got your URLs, okay, urls.py, and a whole lot of other things. They are all within the project, a folder, okay. And outside of the project folder, you will see that manage.py file is and your what you call it, your static folder. So if you, let me just like move out of there, and I'll just put in a text box in there, and just sort of type in that in here. You'll have your manage.py. Okay, so this is the high level file that does a lot of all our commands are being run from this file. And then we have the what we call the static folder. Okay, the static folder. And the static folder, basically, this is where you're going to keep all your CSS, your JavaScript, all your static files, your images, all the things that your application is going to be using. And you'll see that it's a high-level static folder, which means the entire project has access to it, but also all the applications that we're going to be building will have access to the static folder. All right. So after you have that high-level project, we're going to have multiple applications that sort of fall underneath this high level project. Okay, so actually let's give this a different color. Not text style. Let's give this like a blue color. All right, and then we're gonna call this applications. Okay. All right, so the first application, instead of calling it application, I'm just going to give it the first name. So I'm going to call my first application jobs. And the reason why I'm calling it jobs is I'm going to connect the applications that I'm going to be building with with the what we call with the object classes. So let's think about that a little bit. So jobs, companies, applicants. Exactly. Okay. So and maybe not education. All right, that's fine. So I'm going to, from a high level, and I'm planning in my head as I'm going along here, right? I'm going to connect the applications. I mean the sort of the applications here is to the classes, and this is why we did the planning at the beginning, because once you get the data structure of the planning, then you're able to figure out what sort of applications you're going to need. And an application is going to be a freestanding sort of like content system, a freestanding content system that that you can sort of like plug in and plug out of the high level project. So another application, for example, could be blogs, for example. All right, we could write an entire application for blogs and manage everything, the blog pages, viewing the blogs, adding new blogs, deleting blogs, or whatever. All of that happening within the blogs application. We could have another application, for example, that we call, companies, or, applicants. Okay, applicants. And we could have another one, for example, that we call companies. Okay, for now, this is high level thinking. That might still change, but from the top of my head, this is sort of like how I'm going to go around doing this Django application for now. All right, so these are all the different applications we could be building in our high level Django web app. All right, all of them will be built under the project. Okay, so we could give these different colors. So let's make that one, and let's make that sort of like purple, and let's make that sort of like green. Okay, so that you can see the difference. So we're going to start by building the jobs. Okay, the jobs application. So let me just delete that there. Okay, let's start by building jobs. Okay, so the way we're going to do that, I'm going to just clear everything so that I start everything at the top, and you can also clear. The command for creating an application is this one. Okay, you type in Python. Okay, so what that does is that it's calling the Python Python program, and you don't have to say Python 2, Python 3, because we are working within the environment. And when this environment was created, the Python that you use to create this environment is a Python that operates within this environment. So if you just type Python, you're good to go. And then we're going to say Python manage.py. Let me just get my spelling right. Python manage.py, and then the command that you need to call is start app, like that. Okay, so you need to call a Python manage.py start app, and then you're going to put in the name of the app that you want to start. Okay, so the first app that I want to start is called the jobs. So what this will do is that it will create for you a whole application with all the folders that's required, the folder structure. It will create all of that for you, and it will create all the files within the folders that's required, and underneath that's called jobs. Okay, so I'm just going to click enter there. And you won't see anything, but if you ls again, which means you're listing everything that's in the directory that you're in, and you click enter, you will see now you have manage.py, you have Scholar app. All these three were there before, but there's a new folder created that is called jobs. This jobs wasn't there before. So let's have a look at what is inside the jobs a folder. Okay, if we now ls in there, you will see now, let's ls minus l and list it in a queue. You will see there's a couple of things in here. Okay, you have admin.py, you have your apps.py, you have your models, you have tests, you have views. So there's a lot of things that you're going to be able to do in here. Let's cd back. Okay, to cd back, one step, you just cd dot space dot, and then you're going to go back to the initial folder. I still like to run all my applications from here. So even though these files are all in there, I'm going to be referring to them from from the directory that's up above. Okay, it might be a bit confusing, but you'll get the hang of it as we go along. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do now is to have a look at the view. So we want to create our first HTML page. Oh no, before we do that, we need to register the application. Okay, so once you create an application, you need to register it in your settings file. It's not going to be done automatically for you. All the applications that came with Django were done automatically, but every time now you add a new one, you need to register it in your settings to tell Django that you have a new application. So for that, we're going to open nano settings.py and we're going to go in there. Sorry, so this is not the one. All right, let's just list here. Okay, no, I know. Okay, so it's not in here, it's inside the project file. Okay, so it's in that the Scholar app where the settings file is. So you're gonna go nano Scholar app like that to go into that directory, and then from there find the file called settings.py. Okay, you can refer to the settings.py even from a different directory if you can type in the route that will lead you to where the file is. All right, so once you get into the settings.py, you're going to look for where the applications are. Okay, so installed apps, that's the one there at the top. So you're just going to find your way in there, and then you're just going to end it. You can edit at the top, you can edit at the bottom, it doesn't matter. I like to edit at the bottom so that I don't affect what's already in there. So just underneath there, you're going to just 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're going to type in there, our new app is called jobs. Okay, you're just going to type it like that. That's all you need to do, and then Control X, save modified buffer, yes, and save it as that settings.py. That's good to go. All right, so you can access the settings.py file directly from the directory above, provided you give it the route to where the settings.py file is. Okay, now that we've added the new app, we're going to now work on the view. Okay, so we want to work on the view to display a certain HTML file. So let's do that quickly. But we want the view within the jobs. So we can actually cd into jobs. All right, and then when we're in here, we can then open up the views.py. The views.py file. This file already exists, as I've already shown you, but there's really nothing in there, and we're going to start creating our first view from scratch. Okay, the view is actually a function that Django will look for and talk to tell Django what HTML file to display, or what to display at all, if it's going to be an HTML or whatever the HTTP response that it needs to display. So in our case, we are going to be displaying HTML files because we are building a web application. So we have to refer to that HTML file here in our views and tell Django which HTML file to display. Okay, so the first HTML file that we want to display is going to be our home page. So we're going to build this home page that you see there. All right, and this is the first page that we're going to display in our Django app, and we're going to display it like this, not wired into anything, just a plain HTML like it is here. There's a couple of things we must do first before we get to this stage, because there's a lot of HTML and CSS that it needs, the CSS and JavaScript that it needs to talk to that we don't have yet. So let's go through the steps one by one. So the first thing is to write the function itself, and to write a function in Python, you need to start by typing in def, and then you give the function a name. And then in this case, I'm going to call it home. All right, some people call them index, whatever it is you want to call it, the home page. I'm just going to call it home, and then open and close brackets, and then it takes in a request as an argument. Okay, this request object is created. I need to type this properly. Request. All right, so this request object is created by Django when somebody makes a request to this root. It takes in that request object, and then with Python you have to do that, and press enter, and then you can type in what function goes in here. Okay, there's a lot of things we're going to type in, but for now we're just going to return an HTML file. Okay, so just type return like that, and then open and close brackets, and then what goes into the return, it takes 3 arguments. Return, but it needs to return render. Okay, so it needs to render something first. So it returns a rendered HTML file, and render, as you can see, it's already imported at the top there. So Django has already pre-imported this render for you, so you don't have to import it again. But this is similar to in Flask, where you have render template in Flask. It's sort of a similar thing. It renders an HTML template, and then this render takes are three arguments. The first one is the request object itself that came in with the function. Okay. So it takes in the request. The second thing it takes is the name of the template that you want it to render. Okay, and that needs to be inside like exclamation mark. So it's a string name of the template, and we're going to name our template home.html. You can name it anything you want, but it has to be an HTML file. So whatever you choose to name it must be .html. We don't have this file yet. We're going to create it later, but we wanted to build the view first to show you how the build goes. And then there is a last variable that it takes in, and this is the data that must go into the HTML template, and it takes it in the form of an object, in the form of a Python dict object. Okay, so for now we don't have any data, so I'm just going to put an open and close curly braces, which means this is just empty. But in future, as we're building this and as we have data that we want to be passed on to the template, we will need to we will refer to it in there, and we will get it inside this function, and then we will pass it to the render function over there, and then those variables will be sent to the HTML, and then it will be displayed with the request object, and all of this will be mixed up together in this render function, and then you'll be able to see it on the front end when you go to the root. Okay, so we haven't done the routing yet. We haven't built the HTML file yet, so we need to do all of that before we can even see the HTML page. But first of all, let's start by building the HTML file. Okay, let's build the HTML file before we do anything else. So once I'm done with this, I'm going to say Control X, and it's then going to close this function for me. Then I'm going to say yes, save the modified buffer as views.py. That's all right. Okay, so once I've done this, I need to then, if you list everything that's in here, you will see you have views and everything, but you don't have templates. You actually need a template, a folder to start putting in your template. So this works similar to Flask, Python Flask, if you worked with Flask, where all your HTML files are kept inside the templates folder. It's pretty much the same thing. So we need to mkdir. This is the Linux command for creating a new directory. So it makes a directory under directly where you are. In the computer. So mkdir, we need to specifically call it templates. Okay, so, and the spelling must be right as well. When I make video recordings, for some reason I'm always misspelling. I don't know why. So mkdir templates. So this is going to create a file for you called templates in here, and I'm going to just click enter. And if you click this ls -l again, you should see the directory templates has been created in there. Okay, so inside the templates folder that I've created, I'm going to now create a file called home.py. And to do that, I'm just going to say a nano, all right, nano templates. So it must create it inside the templates. So it's template dash home .html. Okay, so what this does, that nano is that code editor. It's going to open inside the templates folder. So this is a templates folder, a file called home.html. You've seen I've just created this folder now. So it actually doesn't have any file inside called home.html. So that's the nice thing about the nano command. If you call the nano command on a folder, on a file that doesn't exist, it's going to create that file for you. All right, so it will be the same as running a touch command. So instead of running a touch command and opening again, you just run one nano command, and that nano command will go and create this file for you, but it will be an empty file because it didn't exist. And you click enter, and you will see over there at the bottom there, it says new file. Okay, so this file wasn't there before. We are now typing this into a new file, and I don't want to do a lot of things in here. I'm just going to have like a heading 1, okay, and close it, and then maybe have like a paragraph. All right, so a paragraph in here, I will say our first Django view. All right, and then at the top there, I'm gonna type in the all right. So the only thing I have in here is one h1 tag, opening, closing tag for h1, and h1 is heading 1. All right, and that h1 tag just says welcome to Scholar Online, and then one paragraph tag that says our first Django view. All right, so this is just simple HTML. I'm only doing this for the purposes of testing my routing and checking that the routing is fine. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to load the proper HTML file the way it's supposed to be from our website that we're building. This HTML file, I will load it later, but for now I just want a simple one just to see that everything works. So I'll do Control X, and this time it will ask me if I want to save. I will say yes, and then it will ask me save to that file name. I will just click enter and that will be saved. Okay. So if you want to check what we've just done, you can cd into templates. Okay, you can cd into templates and you can ls and you'll see that home.html file exists in there. All right, so we've done that, and I'm going to cd out completely out of the jobs. Okay, so I'm back in the where the manage.py is. So I'm back at the root of my application, and what I need to do now is to connect the router. Okay, so I need to go into the app or the project, it's a folder, and go into the URLs and do some modifications there to make sure that the URLs are going to be able to show or display the page that I've just created, okay, from the views. So in order to do that, we're just going to open the URLs file. So the URLs file actually exists inside the Scolo app. All right, so to open that file over here, we just need to do nano Scolo app. All right, urls.py. Right, like that. So it's opening inside of the Scolo app folder, which is our project folder. Our project is Scolo app, and the URLs file, this is where we need to do all of that. And you'll see it's a file that already exists. It's not a new file. This is the file that came with the Django application. Okay, so if you look through here, ignore the green. The green is just commentary to help you sort of navigate through this file the first time. If you have time, I would delete it, but I'm going to leave it there because it comes with the Django installation. Okay, and you will see the URL patterns. Okay, the URL patterns is sort of like the URL roots of this application. Okay, and as you can see here, currently there is a pattern for admin, which means, and this one came with the application as well because the admin the admin function was already built into this. Okay, and if you went to our application admin page, you would see the admin, and we did that in lecture 2, and you saw that. So this admin has already been pre-built, and it came with the application. So we need to define the other parts that the application should have that we want to be working with. Okay, so the first URL part that I want is going to be the home page. Okay, and the home page is the one that's going to be saying Scolo Online, the one that I just built, the home.html. I want to display this in here. Before I can do that, I need to import that view in here. So there's two ways to do it. I can either import that view in here, and then I can refer to it from here, from that views itself inside this file, or I can include another URLs file that I'll keep inside the application, and then I will refer to the view file in there. I don't know if that makes sense. So the first way of doing it is how I'm going to do it now. But when our application gets bigger and bigger and gets more complex, especially when you have multiple apps and multiple views, then you might want to not refer to the, to the URLs in here, but create another URLs file inside the application and just sort of refer to that, or sort of call that file, that URLs file, in the main URLs file of the project. Okay, that we'll do later when the application gets bigger. But for now, our application is small. We only have one app. It's simple enough for us to write the URL, pattern in one folder within the project directory. So for us to do that, we're going to go inside the URL patterns. You see the URL patterns is an array. Okay, it has an opening and closing bracket for an array, which means it's a list. So everything goes inside that array as a list. Okay, so I'm going to go after the first URL pattern there. I'm going to create a space over there so I can type the next one. Okay, so let's just go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then I'm going to do exactly what's on the path. All right, open and close, and then put the comma at the end, and then we'll go and type in what goes into the path later on. Okay, this just so I don't forget the comma and I don't forget the open and closing bracket. Okay, so the first argument that path takes is the actual root itself. Okay, so in this specific case, I want the home to just be like blank, to like be when someone goes to our whatever the website is going to be when we finally finish building it, whether it's going to be careersportal.co.za or whatever, when they go to the main root of that website, the empty one with nothing on it, it should take them to the home page. So the first string is where people would have been going to. All right. And then after that, the second, the second, what do you call it, variable that it takes is the view. Okay, the function that shows the view. Okay, so remember the function, we wrote it inside of the views, inside of the job application folder. So we need to import that in here. Okay, so we need to import, we need to say from, jobs. This is the folder. The folder is called jobs. Okay, import views. Okay, so what this does is from the jobs application, which is the jobs folder, it's going to import the views.py file that exists inside the jobs folder. So this is the only thing this line is doing. It's going to the jobs folder, okay, and it's importing a file called views. You don't have to say import views.py, you just say import views. And then from inside the views file itself, you're going to have to now refer to the function that you want to be called when somebody goes to this path. So when someone goes to this path of dash dash, which is now the home path, which is going to be like the home page, we want them to show views. Okay, this views is that views at the top there. All right, views.home. Remember the function we called def home? That was the name of the function that we called. That def home file is, we're going to be able to access it from these views that's imported from the jobs folder. So import views from the jobs folder, and views.home, that's the home function inside of the views file inside of the jobs folder. So that function is the function that actually calls our home.html file. We want you to get that function. All right. And then the last variable that this path takes is the name of that. You can just give it, like, this is optional, giving it a name, and that we'll see how useful that gets later on when we're referring to roots inside of the templates, the Django templates themselves. Okay, so for now, just go with me, and we're gonna call this, we'll give it a name, and the name also goes into a string, and we're gonna call this the home page. Okay, so the string name is a home page, and the function that needs to be called is the views.home, and the path is that path, and and we've imported it, these views, we imported it at the top there. All right, so basically this is what goes in there, and I think I can move that there. I don't need a space at the end there, and that should be what we what we have in here. So everything looks good for now. I'm going to close this. And do I want to save this? Yes, I want to save this, and it will save this under the URLs. Okay, so I think that should be it. Okay, so now when I run this application and somebody goes to the home page of this application, they should be able to see the home page, which is what we typed in our HTML. Let's test this. Let us test this. So in order to test this, I need to run the application. Okay. So I need to just paste that. Python manage.py Runserver, and we want to run it on port 8000. Okay, provided there's no error, everything is gonna go well. And then also I have to remind myself my damn, I have to remind myself what is the IP address for this, where it is. Okay, there you go. So it's supposed to be HTTP, not HTTPS, all right? And you'll see the HTML file that we just created. Welcome to Scholar Online, our first Django view. This is the HTML that we just typed. We had one H1 and we had one paragraph, okay? So we've done the routing, we've done the templating, we've done, we displayed our first website on Django. Now, the next step is going to be a little bit more involved. It's going to take a little bit of time is I want to display this HTML file, but I want to display it directly with the CSS and HTML exactly as it is over here, which means I need to load the HTML and CSS into my into DigitalOcean Droplet, and then I need to refer to load it into my static folder, and then I need to be able to refer to the static to all the static files from the HTML, and that's going to be a bit of an involved process, and let's do that next. So this is the HTML file that we want to be displaying, okay? So instead of what we're displaying now here, we want to display this HTML, and this is the file itself. So you should already have this file downloaded. We downloaded it back in lecture 2 of this series. We downloaded it from Themeforest, so it's a free file. You can go and download it following the instructions that I gave out in that lecture. And we're going to do some work on this file before we have to load it into Django, because we have to talk to a couple of things in a different way. Python works slightly different from if you just had to display this as a website, as a plain HTML without a back-end server. We have to work like we're working with Python, which has a server in Django that's going to be talking to this HTML file. Okay, the first and most important thing that we need to do is we need to move these files. These are the static files I'm referring to. The CSS, the fonts, the CSS, the fonts, the images, the JS, and the SCSS in the order that they appear in. So you want to move these folders as they are and move them into our Django application static folder. Okay, so let's go to our Django application in here. All right, and let's list this, and you'll see we've got a static folder there. Okay, so if we cd into this static folder, all right, like that, we need to create a new. This admin has all the static folders for the admin a website or the admin application. We need to create our own static folder in here that's going to be hosting our static files. And because our application is not very big, I'm not going to have multiple types of sets of static or CSS folders. I'm going to just do it all in one, and I'm going to have it all on the project directory at the top. Because in some websites, you find that you're doing the back end, you're doing the front end, maybe you're doing like different parts of your web application that have different styling or a whole different CSS file or different sort of combination of CSS files. In this case, we don't have any of that. We don't have that complexity. We only have one set of static files. So I'm going to create a folder in here by saying mkdir like that, and I'm going to call it app. You can call it anything you want. Okay, I just want a new folder that I know what it's called. Okay, and then if you ls in there again, you'll see that app folder is created. And I'm going to move all these folders in here from my personal computer into this droplet or whatever. I'm gonna move all those files in there. Okay, and there's a nice one command that I'm going to do to you. I'm going to use to do all of that. So this is now, let me just clear in here, and let me just cd to the root of mine, so that all right. So this is I'm now in this is my computer. This is my MacBook. All right, and I've created a new tab, and this is the virtual machine with the virtual environment running. So I want to move files from this MacBook into here. Okay, and I'm going to use a command line to do that because I already have SSH. I've got logging in. I can write a command function. Not function, but I can write a command to do all of that in one. Okay, and I've typed it in here, and I'm just going to go look for it and copy it and paste it in there. So I'm going to use rsync. Okay. So let's paste that in there and have a look at what we've got there. Okay, I need to change some things in here. All right, so I'm going to use rsync, and I'm going to use rsync, and this is the way the files are saved in my computer. Okay, they are saved under users, and my username is Matsidiso, under the desktop and HTML, CSS. Okay, and everything inside the CSS file, and I'll show you that. Okay, so if you look at this is my desktop, and in my desktop there is that HTML folder, And inside that HTML folder, you'll have the CSS folder, the fonts folder, the images folder, the JS folder, and the SCSS. So all of these are saved in my desktop. So I'm telling this a command that under this computer of mine, inside the HTML, inside the CSS folder, okay, and then you're gonna have like a slash in there, and then you have like the wildcard. So what this does is that it's gonna take everything inside the CSS folder. Okay, it's going to take everything inside the CSS folder, and it's going to move all of that or sync it to my virtual machine. And you can, a virtual machine has an address, okay, the username at the IP address. So this IP address must just match the IP address of my virtual machine. So I'm going to delete this button here first, and I'm going to copy, I think I have the IP address in here somewhere. All right, so I'm going to copy that IP address in there. And so it's Zatosh at that address. All right, let me just make sure that my username is Zatosh. Yes, it is. All right, so Zatosh at that IP address, and then it's gonna go home Zatosh. Then after it goes home Zatosh, this is a home, and then the username is the same thing as users home or the username. So for Linux, you need to go home username, and then from there you can describe the entire route where you want to save this thing. Okay, so currently inside the static folder, I need to create new folders. I need to create a folder for CSS. All right, I need to create a folder for fonts. All right, I need to create a folder for images. I need to create a folder for JavaScript, and I need to create a folder for scss, like that. So I'm making a directory in, okay, actually no, not in here. Let me actually copy this, copy and remove it. And I don't want to create it inside the static. I want to create it inside the app. All right, yeah. So inside static, inside app, I want to create all these folders, SCSS, JavaScript, blah, blah, blah. And then if I list it again, I will see all those folders are created, CSS, fonts, whatever. So I'm going to be able to copy files from the CSS folder on my computer over here and copy them into the CSS folder of my virtual machine, okay, using the rsync command. And so I need to know this route, okay? It's dev, Scolo, all the way app. Okay, so I'm going to copy it like that, right? Copy that, and that's what I want to type in there. So it's Zatosh. After Zatosh, that's my username. I'm going to paste dev. Okay, so it's gonna go to my username. It's gonna go into dev, Scolo app, static app, and then I want to paste all of this inside the CSS folder that I've just created in there, and then I need to put the ending backslash in there so that it puts those files inside of the CSS folder. Okay, so this is a very powerful command. Simple if you can get your routing right, but basically what it does, it syncs, it copies everything that's inside this a folder, everything that's in the CSS, the wildcard is for everything that's inside this folder. It will copy them into my virtual machine, which is my username is Zatosh at all of that. But obviously, before you run this, it's going to ask you for authentication, and you're going to have to have your password. If it's password locked, you're going to have to enter your password. Otherwise, in my case, I have SSH, so it's just going to work. I just need to sort of unlock my SSH with another SSH password. Okay, so let's hope I got this right. Okay, no spelling errors, and I'm going to click enter. Okay, and then it's going to run this function, and then it's going to ask me to enter my passphrase for my SSH, and let me do that. And it's copying. That's it. Awesome. Okay, so it copied all these files in there, and for us to check that these files are really copied in here, if you remember, we just created these files in here. I'm going to cd into CSS, all right, and then I'm going to list everything that's in here, all right, and there you go. Okay, I've just copied these files in here, bootstrap, main, whatever, all carousel, select size. So I've copied my CSS files from my personal computer, and I've copied them in here, okay? So I'm going to do the same for the fonts, for the images, for the JavaScript, and for the SCSS, okay? So let's just get back that command again. Just use the up arrow, is gonna get you the last command that you just created. Okay, so the next folder that we're going to be working with is the fonts. All right, and you need to also from this other side be copying it from the fonts folder on this other side. Awesome. Okay, so let's cd out of the, let's cd into, let's pick anyone, JavaScript, and list what's in that JavaScript. You'll see all the JavaScript has been loaded in here. Okay, so we're gonna cd out and cd out of the app completely, cd completely out of the static, and now we know that we've got the static folder set and correctly. Okay, but before we can continue, we need to also then register the static folder inside of our settings.py file. So we need to open our settings.py file, and let's just see where I am. Okay, I'm in the right place, and in order to do that, you need to just nano Scholar app and open the settings .py file. Okay, and then we need to just at the bottom here, we need to talk to where the static folder is. All right, and just make sure this is correct. And I think I have it also in my notes. Sorry, excuse me, going back to my notes over and over again, but I just need to copy it exactly the correct way. So we're going to let's delete what's in here. It's probably correct, but just to make sure and I don't want to make mistakes, is I know what's in my notes is correct. And so basically, yeah, there it is. And at the top there we have OS imported. There you go. And then I'm going to just close this and save it, and that's good to go. Okay, then what I'm going to do now is then copy and paste the HTML file and just run it, because the only thing we've done now is that we have loaded our static files, our CSS, our JavaScript files, and we can now put in a CSS, an HTML file that is talking to the static folders and static files, and we should be able to see the CSS, coming through. So for that, I'm going to go to my actual, this is the HTML file that we're going to be working with. It's your index.html. This is the home page. All right. So first of all, I'm just going to go through this high level and show you the kind of things you need to be looking at. The first one is obviously the title. You want to change the title. The title must talk to your main keyword that you're working with. All right. So we want our web page to be talking to careers portal. That's the title that we've selected. And I've just updated the description and the keywords over there. And the keywords also to talk about careers portal. Careers portal, I mentioned it a lot because that's the keyword that you've chosen. You want it to sort of stand out to the search engines and be picked up as that. Okay, but now we need to rewrite all the links. Okay, because currently these are hard-coded links that are based on the location of the fave icon, as of relative to this HTML. So this is a hard-coded link, but now inside of Django, it's not going to be able to work, because inside of Django we actually have to write it inside the Django. We have to write it in the Django sort of the way of writing things. Okay, so we can't use the hard-coded links anymore in HTML because we've got a server, and the server has to render this this HTML, and then it has to be able to read through. So we have to write it in Python code inside of the HTML that talks to the Django template. So first of all, we don't have a fave icon, and I'm going to just sort of leave that grayed out for now. And I'm going to just start with the style sheet. Okay, so the way we're going to represent the style sheet is actually very, very simple. The href, I'm just going to copy this because currently this is already inside the CSS folder and everything's inside the CSS folder. So I'm going to just take it out, okay? And the way you write this is that in Django, you're gonna put a open and close curly braces, okay? And then you're gonna put 2% signs, all right? Okay, and then you're gonna type whatever you're typing inside of the percent signs, okay? So we need to first of all type static. All right, so static just tells it go to the static folder. All right, and we've already in our settings defined where the static folder is, and then within the static folder, and then the rest you're gonna put it inside of a string. All right, and then you're gonna say, because inside of the static folder, remember we created a new folder called app. Okay, and then so we're gonna say app, and then and put everything else. So inside of the static folder is gonna go into the app, it's gonna go into the CSS folder in there, and then it's going to find this file, and then this is the file that it's going to be talking to. So basically we're going to do everything and rewrite it like that. So this also is going to follow the same thinking, and actually I'm going to just try and find all the style sheets. Okay, and we're going to replace all the style sheets. There's 8 of them, so let me just do that quickly. All right, so this is how we represent the static files, the style sheet CSS files, okay? And then the next thing that, and then we're gonna go along. For now, we're not changing a lot of the content. We will go into working on the content later. All right, when I go into on-page SEO and how to rewrite all of this to cover all of that. We're not worried about that. We need to sort of have a look at all the links, all the hrefs, okay? All right, there's a lot of them. So what I want to do is that I just need to make sure that all the hrefs are pointing to something that makes sense, okay? So this one is fine. Okay, so after we've done that, we have changed all the CSS, we've changed all the hrefs, removed like the links to .html files. The next thing is to have a look at our images, okay, because we also have to represent the images in a different way. All right, so let's look at the first one. I'll talk you through this. All right, you have a light logo and a dark logo. All right, the alt text, I'm gonna leave it blank for now. I'll go into the alt text when we're doing the on-page SEO. For now, what I need to do is to get this written in the Django format. Okay, so I'm gonna again remove that as it was in there, and then open close brackets, same percentage sign. Again, the images are inside the static file, and they are inside of the app images logo, whatever. Okay, so all the IMGs, I have to rewrite them like that. So let's do that now. Okay, so that's done with the images. All right. Then the last bit is to also do the same with the JavaScript files. Okay, and the JavaScript files are usually at the bottom of the HTML page. Okay, so let's do that quickly. So this is insufficient for now. We haven't done anything to change the HTML file as it came from the template that we downloaded. The only thing we did is that we just updated the title of the website. We have coded the how it finds the style sheet, how it finds the JavaScript, and how it finds the images. And these are all the items that are inside of our static folder. Okay, so what we've written in here is that this represents the curly braces and the percent sign tell Python or Django that this is whatever is in here is Python code. Okay, it's Python code inside of HTML. So if you want to write code inside of HTML, this is how you write it. You write it inside of curly braces and percent signs. And then we are referring to the static folder. And inside of the static folder within the string, you need to find this file that is inside the static folder, app CSS material design icons main.css. And then you need to import it into as a style sheet in here. And basically we've done the same for images, we've done the same for JavaScript. That's all we're doing. Okay, so we can do a little bit of like high level work over here to just at least personalize the template for ourselves. So I'm going to put this next to let me just find the website so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to change the title over here. All right, the find jobs, create whatever. So let me just copy that and find it in here. All right, there it is. So at the top here, you can see this is the background image over there. We're gonna change this background image, but for now we're gonna leave it as a placeholder. So we're gonna change this, and this is like the first It's not a title, it's an H6. So the H1 is the most important one. So when we're doing on-page SEO, we have to have our keyword as the first words within the title H1 tag of the website. So our keywords are obviously a careers portal, okay? And I'm gonna think about this later on, but for now I'm just gonna put number careers portal South Africa jobs, something like that, okay? And then I'm gonna put in here, you know, find jobs, all industries in one place on careers portal, okay? Find jobs, all industries, all cities, you know, in one place on careers portal. Okay, I'm gonna have something like that just to show you that I'm doing work to change this. And then popular categories, we'll decide later on what kind of categories we want, and we'll decide later on the details that go into the template. But for now, we're just gonna take it as it is, and that's the only thing that I've changed. Okay, so I'm going to save this for now. Let's just save this file, and then I'm going to like copy it as it is, the entire file from the top, and I'm gonna paste it into on the other side into my Django application. Just make it to the bottom of the file. Got a long file. All right, and then I'm just going to copy it, copy, and then I need to find what's in here. All right, so I need to go into, let me see where I am right now. Okay, so I need to nano, I need to open jobs, and inside the jobs folder, I need to open the templates folder in there, and inside the templates folder, I need to open the file that is called home.html. Okay, so I'm going into the jobs folder, into the templates folder, and opening the file called home.html, which is the file that we did before that just says welcome to Scholar Online. And I'm going to delete everything that's in here, and then I'm going to paste the new HTML that we just worked on, because that's the HTML that we want to paste in here. And I'm going to give it some space and paste it. It will take a bit of time because it's a lot of stuff with pasting. Okay, so it pasted everything. And then the one thing that you need to do, and you must not forget to do this, is that you need to load your static, okay? So you need to tell Django to load static, and this is just something that Django needs. So let's just quickly get that coding for that. I'm just going to copy that and put it in here. Right at the top of your HTML file, you need to have this line that says load static. If you don't have it, it won't actually find the static folders. So once you've done that, you can call Control X to close this file and click yes, and it's gonna close it. Okay, and technically we should be good to go. We should be able to run the same application and find the static folder. So let's see if this works. I mean, find the HTML. We haven't done anything except replace the contents of the HTML with our own HTML. We've loaded the static. Let's hope that works. Okay, so let's clear. Make sure we are on the manage.py, and then I'm going to go in here again and copy my Runserver prompt in there and paste it in there and click enter. And let's hope there's no errors. Okay, there's no errors from the server side. Then let's go to the web page, and where were we? Over there. Okay, and let's rerun this. So the first time is going to take a bit of time to load all of that, but voila, okay? Voila, there we've done it, okay? So if you look, this is running from our virtual machine port 8000. It looks exactly the same as this page over here because we technically didn't change anything. The only thing we changed that we should be able to see at the top our new words that we said: find all jobs, all industry, all cities in one place on Careers Portal, South African jobs. Okay, so we've done that. Okay, so this is the first few steps that I wanted to cover in this lecture, just to show you how to import templates, how to import static folders. So we've done that. From now moving on, being able to take the HTML template from the template that we've downloaded into being able to speak to Django, you now have seen how to do that. Okay, so if you look at our tasks for today, create the first app, we've done that, the view, we've done that, the routing, we've done that, static file management, we've done all of that. Okay, so the next couple of steps we will do in the next lecture, but I think before I even get into user registration, I'm going to do a little bit of I'm going to start creating a bit more HTML files, and we need to do a little bit more planning into from all the folders we have from all the HTML files that we have copied over here, which are the ones we're actually going to need and which are the ones we're going to use in our application. And then we have to go and did what I've done. If you've seen what I've done here, where I was refiguring this template for Django in your homework between now and next week. So I've published this video a bit earlier to give you time, so you have entire 6 days until we do our next lecture. Okay, go and think about all the files we will need, all the HTML files we will do, and go and restructure them or whatever for Django, like what I've done. Okay, making sure that you have you rewrite them with the way that is being written, so that it can find the static folder, so it can find the images. Before we do anything else, at least the HTML file should be talking to Django. Okay, so do that in the meantime, and then we'll see you again in the next lecture.